Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time this afternoon to join us for this webinar series that we have put forward regarding social media and establishing your social media presence to help enhance your insurance business. The main focus of this afternoon's presentation is how to put together and establish an effective a paid-for Facebook advertisement. And making the presentation, as always, is our Ken French, who is a social media expert and web developer who only works with insurance agents. We're proud to partner with Ken and glad to let our producers who are appointed with us to have use Ken's services at a discount. So with that, before we do begin, though, I do want to let you know that you can ask a question in the GoToWebinar control panel. Just type it into the questions box, and we'll be sure to address any questions at the conclusion of the presentation. So, and with that, then I want to hand it over to Ken. So, Ken, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks. So, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you coming on today. Today's webinar is going to be, somewhat technical, but I think I have a lot of good information to at least give you some insight on what's going on with setting up Facebook ads. So before I begin, let me just kind of quickly introduce myself. Like Rob said, I kind of grew up in the insurance industry, and that's really my background. Back in the day, back in the 90s and the 2000s, we used to have a family-owned business that was kind of like Art Jetter, where our clients were independent insurance agents who sold Medicare, life insurance, health insurance, employee benefits. And back then, I was the young guy, and because I was the young guy, they appointed me to be kind of the tech guy. So back in probably 2000, 2001, I started to have some of my producers say, hey, do you think you can help me build a website? Maybe I need one of these website things. Obviously, websites were starting to become, they were kind of new. So I started to help a few of my producers build their own websites. And as time went on through the 2000s, it probably went from me helping 5 or 6 producers to a few dozen. And next thing you know, I was hiring programmers and people to help me. And I had my own little department within the company that was our tech department. Well, to make a super duper long story short, we ended up selling this family business back in 2009. My father and my uncle, who started the company back in the 70s, they were getting older, and healthcare reform was on the horizon, and it was kind of a scary time. So anyway, they sold the business. And when they sold the business, I took my department and we decided to create our own company, which is Snoozy. And it's obviously we've been doing this now technically about 11, 12 years. But my point is I've always kept it to the insurance industry. And my main focus today is to really help independent agents with websites. And if they don't have time to do their own social media, we certainly offer solutions for that as well. But my point, though, is I just work within the insurance industry. So I always have someone who says, hey, my brother-in-law, he's a lawyer. Can you help him with a website? And I always say, no, I keep it to the insurance industry. But the reality is by keeping it to the insurance industry, it allows me to become an expert in Medicare compliance. It allows me to be an expert with a lot of the technology that's out there. Obviously, I'm sure Rob has talked a lot about some of the different tools and services Art Jetter offers to you. They have all sorts of different quoting and enrollment tools. And of course, there's a lot of stuff out there that the carrier can give you, whether it's your own enrollment personalized URL, or certainly they even offer social media content today these days that can be utilized. So anyway, I'm an expert in all that kind of stuff. I'm a big believer that, in 2021, it's kind of about having all of the puzzle pieces in place. And, with that, I mean having like your web presence in place. Back in 1999 or 2000, when I started to build websites, you had a website. That's all you had, right? And maybe it was a page or two that said, hey, I sell Medicare. This is my phone number. And, you can fill out my scope form if you want me to contact you. And that was it. Well, in 2021, you have a big website that kind of tells people who you are, still has the authorization form, but maybe it has some of these pieces of technology in it. Then, of course, you have a Facebook business page and you have a LinkedIn business page. And all of these things are part of this big puzzle called your web presence. And what we're going to talk about today is kind of taking it to even the next level, which is, Facebook offers what I would call like a pay advertisement. And I'm going to kind of teach you how you can go in there, pick out a specific target market, and kind of come up with an ad that's going to generate you leads. To be honest, it's not going to be easy. In no way am I telling anyone to just go and set up ads after today's presentation, but I want to give you at least a little bit of knowledge on what your competition might be doing. And maybe one day this becomes one of your marketing buckets. And like I said, I'm a marketing guy, and I believe that the top producers in this industry, they have a lot of different buckets. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, maybe one of their buckets is they get referrals. Maybe one of their buckets is they've partnered with a local doctor who refers them people who have questions about the products they sell. Maybe one of their other buckets is they do mailers. And then their final bucket is they do Facebook ads. And all these different buckets equal a lot of business. So today I want to, like I said, kind of go through how you can set up a Facebook ad. And, my first kind of slide here just kind of talks about, well, why? Why would you want to do that? And I think the highlights are, number one, there's just a lot of people on Facebook. Especially if you're in that senior market, probably people 50, I would say 55 to 70. A lot of those people are on there. They're on there kind of looking at pictures of their grandkids. It's a way they communicate. So if your target market is baby boomers and senior market, a lot of potential there. Number two, and I'll obviously go through and show you how to do this, you can make these ads very targeted. So what that means is you can set up how old they are. And when I say they, I mean the people that are going to see your ad, right? So let me just kind of rewind for a second. Let's say you do an advertisement in the newspaper, okay? If you do it in the newspaper, well, who's going to see it? Well, all the people that get the newspaper. And that could be a wide range of a lot of people. You're not really sure who they are, other than they're probably pretty local to the newspaper's distribution. With Facebook, we can take it to the next level. We can go in and select all sorts of specific things to try to get our target market down to a very small number. If the number is small, then we know the people that are seeing the ad probably fit the criteria of the people that will need the products we're marketing. And what that does is it keeps our costs low. And that's a big part of this, is that you can do a Facebook ad very affordably. So anyway, like I said, number two, we can target them by their age, where they live, what their interests are. We can certainly set up the ads very quickly. So that's a good thing. Within basic, if you were a master, within 5 or 10 minutes, you could have this thing up and running. Again, we can manage the budget, and, you have the ability to basically, the more that you spend, the more people are going to see your ad. So let me kind of this is what I call my disclaimer PowerPoint slide. Okay. So before you go running off and trying to do this, make no mistake, to get results, you have to come to the table with a full puzzle of all of the web presence pieces I talked about before. So I guess kind of 3 things to remember. Number one, Facebook ads did not start with COVID. Facebook ads have been around since 2016, okay? So what that means is we're talking 5 years. I always kind of compare Facebook ads to kind of like an NFL game plan. If we think back to the old days, back in the 60s and 70s, think about what the game plans were for like the old Packers and the Steelers and the Chiefs, right? They would run to the left or run to the right, and that was considered like okay, we'll have the fullback block. That was advanced kind of thought processes. Think about what the game plans are now, right? There's like triple reverses, the receiver's throwing it to the quarterback. I guess my point is over the years, as the game has been played, things have gotten more strategically complicated in order to be successful. It's the same thing with Facebook. It's been 5 years now. And over the last 5 years, there have been quite a few obviously independent agents, insurance carriers, lead generation companies that have taken to this, and they've learned how to get results. And I guess my point is I always kind of compare Facebook ads to kind of like playing a game. When you sit down to the table and play this game, you're going to be competing against these other people. So remember, they have a advanced strategy that you're going to have to compete against. Doesn't mean you can't get a lead, but at the end of the day, the goal is not to get one lead. The goal is to get a lot of leads every day, right? Or consistent flow of leads. So what I'm trying to say is before you even consider doing a Facebook ad, I really think you need to have an insurance website for your operation. And you definitely need a Facebook business page. And on top of having a Facebook business page, you got to be posting on that Facebook business page. Because remember, when you do your advertisement, the consumer, they can click on your advertisement and they'll immediately go back to your Facebook business page to kind of do a background check on you. And attached to your Facebook business page is your agency website. So my point is when you don't have these items, honestly, you're wasting your money. You're just wasting it because most of the consumers out there today, they're pretty sharp. And a lot of the people who use Facebook, and I use the word addicted because I think it's a fair word. There's a lot of people who are addicted to Facebook, and they're on it all the time, every day. They know how to use Facebook. They know how to click around, even people that are in their 60s and 70s. So my point is if you come to the table and you try to play the game, make sure you come prepared or you're going to just waste and lose money. And I have had a tremendous amount of insurance agents this year specifically call me up and say, look, I was trying to do Facebook ads, whatever. Things have gotten slow with COVID. I used to be able to, go meet people, or I used to be able to sit in Walmart. All that's gone. And somebody told me to do some Facebook ads, and I threw a quick $300 in there, and I got nothing. And, after talking to them, well, did you have a website? Well, no. Did you have a Facebook page? Well, yeah, I have a Facebook page. And then I go look at their Facebook page, and there's no content on there. It doesn't look professional. There's no graphic or logo. This doesn't look good, and people aren't going to feel comfortable filling out your form, to take a look. All right, so how do we do Facebook ads? Well, let's start off with the basics. Let me try to click out of here for a second. So obviously the first thing you do is you go into your Facebook account, and you'll notice here in the upper right-hand corner a button that has a plus on it. I want you to click that plus, and a drop-down will come. And basically plus means like create, right? So you click on the plus, and the fifth thing down is add. So when you click on that add button, what you're going to see is probably the most important screen of the whole process. So what you're going to do is you're going to see that you have some goals here to choose from. And what I've tried to do is kind of create a slide that breaks this down strategically. So like I said, the first thing you do is you click on create an ad. And the first thing Facebook will say to you is they're going to say, okay, you want to create an ad? What kind of call to action is this ad going to have? And basically what that means is when you create this ad, there's going to be a button that people click, and that's going to be how you get their information. But like I said, with Facebook, this is complicated. There's strategy involved. They give you quite a few choices. So the first choice they get is it says, get more leads. The second choice is probably going to be like boost a post. The third choice is get more messages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you'll see the last one says get more visitors to your website. Well, the first thing I've tried to do is I tried to make this easy for you. So I've already eliminated the ones you don't want to consider. And like I said, I think this is complicated. This is 5 years of evolution that we've gotten to this point. But what I'm trying to do is explain to you the ones that I think are going to work best immediately. So the first one that you can choose says get more leads. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that in your advertisement, there is going to be a button that says, request. Let's say it says request a quote. So if somebody clicks that, they are going to be given a Facebook fillable form. We'll call it a lead capture form, where they'll put their name, their phone number, their email. To be honest, you can choose, I think, you can customize whatever information you want to get from them. But my point is when you choose to get more leads ad, the call to action is going to be a fillable form. The second one that you're going to want to consider, and this is going to be the one I'm going to set up because this is actually my favorite, is the get more messages setup. And just let me try to slow down for a second. So again, when you come into Facebook, basically what they want to do is they want to throw you into like a setup wizard. That's the best way to think about it. And each one of these choices, like I said, it has its own call to action, but it has like its own parameters. And one thing that I've learned is each type of ad you do, might fit better in a certain category, in a certain goal. For me, again, I offer some consulting on this. I've helped a lot of agents who try to get, turning 65 leads, final expense leads, life insurance leads, health insurance leads. The ones that seem to work the best are the ones I've highlighted. Like I said, the get more leads, the get more messages. And then the final one is get more website visitors. So basically what that one means is if somebody clicks on your ad, you're going to send them away from Facebook to a landing page. Maybe it's a page on your website where they can request a quote. Maybe it's a page, maybe it's one of your personalized URLs where they can actually see pricing and enroll. But that's where you would use the get more website visitors one. So anyway, in short, step one is we have to pick what type of ad we're going to set up. And, the thing that I have learned is the best of the best, what they usually end up doing is they end up having 2 or 3 ads running at once. And we'll kind of go through that in a few minutes. And maybe each ad they set up has a different call to action, right? They choose a different one for each ad. I mean, you can certainly do that. You can have multiple ads running at once. So what I've done is I've come in and I've chosen the Get More Messages button. That takes us to the area where we can set up our ad, where we can choose our audience, and where we can set up our budget, okay? So let's hold off. I've kind of set up an ad here. Let's hold off on that first and first talk about audience, okay? So this is probably the most important part of doing the ad. This is going to probably be the biggest difference between success and failure. And, from my perspective, this is probably the most challenging thing for me to explain to you because, in my opinion, based on the products that you're trying to market, the audience is going to vary quite differently, right? So what the point I'm trying to get across is that we want to try to think of things that narrow down our search because at the end of the day, we only want people who are going to be interested in our products to see the ads. If people who are not interested or it's not relevant to them see it, then you're going to waste money. You're going to spend money on people seeing it who don't or aren't interested. So for this next segment, let's just assume that we're going to try to do a turning 65 ad, okay, for Medicare. So what I've done is I've gone into the audience detail area. And you can see that we have quite a few options here. We can have it go to both men and women, which is all, or we can have it go to men or just women. And I don't know if you can see this, but when I change these, you can see down here, I'm trying to highlight it, it changes what our bubble is, our target reach. So right now, if I choose all, and I choose 25 miles around Kansas City, Missouri, and you can see in the age range here, I have age range 62 to 65. By dragging this little circle, I can change the age range. If I move it down to 18 to 65, we go up to 1.5 million people within 25 miles of Kansas City. So again, this is going to be a T60. For right now, I'm just going to do an ad about turning 65. And what I suggest is that you select people that are 62 to 65 plus. Unfortunately, Facebook does not allow us to choose 66 or 67. That's just not an option. So by doing that, let me go back in there. By doing that, you can see that our target market's about 220,000 people. The reason I have selected people who are 62, even though obviously we're trying to target people turning 65, is I have found over the years that a lot of times the person who might be turning 65 might be a male. and they may not use Facebook that much, but their wife, who's 62 or 63, is on Facebook all the time. So she might see the ad and kind of request a consultation for her husband. So it's important to keep those type of variables in your mind. I've also had a lot of clients swear to me that they do better when they choose just women, that the ad goes to just women. They feel that for whatever reason, women are converting more on Facebook. Listen, I don't have any analytics to back that up. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when you start to do these ads, like if you seriously want this to be one of your buckets, you have to have the mindset and the attitude that there's going to be some trial and error. You don't just go set up an ad and then boom, you hit a home run. Very unlikely. It's more likely that you're going to have to set up a lot of test ads, see how they work, see how many people are seeing the ad, how many people are messaging you or filling out the form. And these are things you're going to have to play around with. And the one thing that's very frustrating is based on where you live and based on kind of the people in your area, it can change all these things. And that's always a common question I get is, well, is there a Facebook Ads for Dummies book out there that I can buy? And will that help me figure all this out? And I try to explain, like, number one, unfortunately, this stuff does evolve very quickly. So if you go buy a book, it's probably outdated and it won't translate. And number two, it's different. Like I have some brokers who are up in Boston, Massachusetts, and they do ads one way and it works great. And then I've tried to do those same kind of ads for clients in San Diego, and it works terrible. And it's just because of their target market and where they're located. So again, if you remember anything from today's presentation, remember that this is kind of tricky. It takes a lot of trial and error, and there's all these different variables you can play with: their age, where they're located. But at the end of the day, whether you're doing Medicare, whether you're doing life insurance, or health insurance, you have to try to figure out, how do I get this potential reach number to be as small as possible? Okay, you don't want it to be 5 million people, because then you're going to waste money on people who don't care about your ad. So the first thing we can do is obviously we can target them by location, we can target them by sex, we can target them by age. The next thing that we can do is we can actually target them. Let me just see here. Well, we can target. Well, I think that's probably what you want to focus on initially. Sorry, I was going to say you can target them by interest, but it appears with the messaging ad that's not a variable. So anyway, so then step two is you want to set up your budget. And the way right now it's been working with this, and I feel like Facebook changes this every 6 months, but right now you can kind of go on what I would call a daily budget. So for anyone who's starting out and wants to give this a try, go with the bare minimum, $1 a day, okay? And, when you do that, obviously you always want to send an end date. So let's just say we want to spend $5 and have it go till the 24th. Well, when you do that, what you want to be looking at is up here, the estimated daily results. And this is where I get a lot of questions. People always ask me, well, how much does this cost? How much does an ad cost? And I try to explain to them, I go, look, it costs as much as you want to spend. But the more that you spend, the more people who are going to see your ad. So right now, if we're just spending $1 a day, it's going to go, it says right now, it says, well, 69 to 200 people are going to see your ad. So in my opinion, that means 100 people. 100 people are going to see the ad on Facebook. To be honest, I have found that the top ad users usually are spending about $10 per lead. So, if you do 5 days, $5, you might not get any leads. I mean, that's just my honest analytical answer. But what's important to take away from my advice here is that, you have to play with it. So let's just say we go from $1 a day to $5 a day. When we do that, you can see that we go from about 100 people seeing it to about 400 or 500 people seeing it on average. So that's kind of where the cost question comes in. Well, how much does it cost? Well, the more that you spend, the more people are going to see the ad. The next question is well, where do people see the ad? Well, people are going to see the ad on their Facebook news feed, right? So they're going to come into Facebook, and as they scroll down, Here's an ad right now from GoDaddy, right? It says sponsored. Become a GoDaddy reseller. Offer customers domains. That's an ad. It's showing up on my feed. So your ad is going to show up on their feed, assuming that they're in the criteria we've set up. So the final thing that you have to do is you have to set up the look and feel of the ad. And honestly, it's pretty simple, right? There's pretty much two things you do. Number one, you put in a description, and I'm highlighting it. So over here on the left is where you create the ad. And I just kind of put in something simple to give you a point. Like, are you confused about your insurance options? Request a no-cost consultation with a local Kansas City licensed insurance advisor. Over here on the right is kind of what the ad looks like. It says ad preview. But my point is if you go over here and you start playing with it, like you start saying protect, your family with life insurance, you will see that over on the right, it changes. So that's kind of how you figure out how is it going to look. You just got to play with it. And, for me personally, I've always believed that you never want to just like impulsively write up an ad while you're building it. Before I go into Facebook, I always kind of do like a brainstorming session. Maybe I use Microsoft Word, and I just kind of put a few ideas and stuff on there. The teaching from this is that you only have so much space in the ad. And that's a common problem I see. I have clients who they'll try to put like a whole paragraph in here. And, I'm just kind of throwing some text in here. But you don't want it to be this massive, because what ends up happening is it's just too big. No one can read it. Sometimes it'll say see more. So my point is think of this kind of like a crossword puzzle. You only have so many letters. You have about 18 characters to put up here. And down here, you only have 25 characters. Excuse me, up here you probably have about 50. Down here you have about 25. And, you got to play with it and make it fit and make sure it's simple. And, of course, the goal is to drive them to click on the send a message button. If they click on the send a message button when they see your ad, you will get a Facebook message from them saying, hey, I want a free consultation, and you'll type back to them. Now, that's how it would work with the messages ad. Obviously, with the, get more leads, you might get their phone number right off the bat. But again, my point is that some people don't want to fill in their phone number. They just want to message you and talk to you. So these are things that you have to kind of understand and play with when you're setting up the ad initially. And I can't stress that enough. So again, like I said, keep this in mind. You really want to consider the message. If you're just getting started, try the messages one. That's the most likely one that's going to convert. I look at these things always kind of like fishing, and it's kind of like what bait gets the most bites. And for whatever reason, the messages one seems to get the most bites. Doesn't mean you pull all of them in, but you get bites. And I think anytime you're starting out, it's always good to get a few bites to learn how to kind of reel in, if that makes sense. So, just to kind of wrap it up, this stuff isn't easy. Even for me to explain this is almost like a headache. But the reason I'm talking about it is because it's growing. It's growing in need. It's growing in possibilities. I'm kind of a historian in insurance marketing, and I always kind of tell people, I go, look, this has been evolving since the beginning. If we think back to the history of the insurance industry, way back in the day, probably maybe, when my grandfather was a young man, you just had so many door-to-door salesmen. That's how it worked. And then everyone started to get telephones, right? And then all of a sudden, cold calling became a thing. And, as the new thing came in, the old thing got like oversaturated, right? And the consumer got sick of it and they ignored it. Cold calling became important. And then, as time went on, people started to do mailers, right? And then after mailers, we got into like email marketing. And, now we've kind of evolved to social media advertising. And, there's nothing wrong with doing the old stuff. It's just as time goes on, the old stuff, the conversion rate goes down. I was just talking to a gentleman the other day, and he was still doing mailers. And he said, gosh, if I can get 1% return on my mailers, I'd be so excited. And I remember being back in 1999 doing mailers, talking to my dad, and him being like, if we can get 5% return, we'll do great. It's just like over time, it dilutes, it gets oversaturated. So, I don't have a percentage on the Facebook ads, but I'm sure it's much higher than 1%. It might be 10%, but you have to understand how to put all these pieces together. So, my final closing tips on the ads are, number one, do not go in there and put a lot of money down. You have to learn how to play the game first. So go in there. There's no shame in going in and putting $5 and $10, letting the ad run for a week or two to get used to it, to see how many views it gets. You're going to have to play with the look and feel of it. You're going to have to play with, obviously, a lot of the parameters. So that's got to be your initial mindset. Number two, the masters. I call these gentlemen the masters. These are guys who are spending $2,000, $3,000 a month, and they're generating $100 to $150. 100 to 150 leads a month. These guys, they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, and they don't just have one ad running. They have like 4 different versions of the same ad running, different looks, different images, different verbiage, different call to action. Keep in mind that if you want to make this one of your main buckets, that's where you're going to have to go. So what I'm trying to say is that all these things I was talking about during the presentation, understanding these different calls to actions, eventually you're going to have to try all of them, and you're going to have to understand them and master them. Thirdly, when you set up an ad, more people seeing the ad is not a good thing. You have to find a way to kind of pinpoint it down. And that can be tough. You start to talk about life insurance, term insurance. You say, well, who's my target market? The reality is it can be very big. It could be people 28 to 68. And that's tough because, you have to spend a lot of money to get it to go out to all those people. So, when you do these ads, maybe you have to find a way to say, okay, where are the highest percentages of success? Is there a specific town that people have a lot of money that they would want this product? So maybe you have to set up the location to be specific to a certain, livelihood, or maybe you have to set it up to a certain age where the people are more likely to be interested in to purchase. These are things you have to consider. One thing I didn't talk about is you do have to be careful about the types of words you use in the ad. Like if you're doing a Medicare ad, you'll notice I didn't talk about, hey, are you turning 65? Do you need help with Medicare? If you do that and put those words in, Facebook will probably reject the ad. It's not somebody sitting there in California rejecting it. It's all automated. But I have found that if you put, are you turning 65, they'll say, hey, look, this ad has age discrimination in it. You can't do that. So my point is if you do set up an ad and Facebook comes back and says, hey, look, your ad is rejected, don't be discouraged. Go back in there, play around with the words. You probably just used a word or two that was too specific or they didn't like. Don't get discouraged. Keep at it. Again, I can't stress enough to try different pictures in the ad. You'll notice that in that one ad I did, I tried to have verbiage in it, like, Medicare just ahead. So if you're doing a life insurance ad, or if you're doing a Medicare ad, or if you're doing a health insurance ad, try to find pictures that have the words in them. If you go in here and click on Browse Images, Facebook will give you a whole library of images you can use. Don't be intimidated. Go in there and do a search, and you probably can find something very good. So keep that in mind. Again, I can't stress enough, trial and error is the key to success. And of course, finally, don't buy books. I have people all the time who go, I bought this book, I think it's great. And then they call me up and they say, in the book, it tells me to click here, but I don't see that. And I go, well, yes, I know you don't see it. It's because Facebook upgraded, they updated how it all looks. And what is in the book is outdated. It doesn't exist anymore. So anyway, so in closing, what I suggest is if you are an independent agent who doesn't really have the full puzzle, right? Maybe you don't have a good website, you don't have a social media business page. In my opinion, you're not even ready to think about these ads. And that's kind of what I do. I'm a guy who, like I said in the beginning, I specialize in the insurance industry. The guys at ArtJetter, Rob and the team have been, great. They've kind of partnered with me. And, long story short, I can help you. I can build you a new website that's Medicare compliant. I can get you set up with social media. If you're an active ArtJetter producer, you can actually get special pricing on my services. And, that's just the value added they provide. But what I suggest is check out this website, jetter.snoozy.net. That has all my services. It has samples. It has videos. It goes through everything I do. It goes through all the pricing. that's your starting point if you're interested in kind of learning more about myself and what I can do. But with that being said, what I want to do is bring Rob back in here. I don't know if anyone has any questions today from the presentation. Now would be the time. You can certainly go into the GoToMeeting toolbar. You can certainly type in your questions. I mean, I know this stuff can be a little intimidating, but I'll do my best. If you have something specific, I'll try to answer it.
Ken,
you're there, Rob.
Thank you very much, Ken, for that excellent presentation. Very informative. A couple of things I wanted to point out and further emphasize was in the beginning of the presentation, Ken mentioned having different buckets, and that's something that very ironically Karen Nally, our Chief Marketing Officer here at Jetter & Company, talks about frequently. And you need to, she's always telling us that when we're marketing our carriers and our products, that make sure that you're dripping into each bucket, because you never know when one might be really successful. You may not know when one's going to dry up for you. So the more buckets you're dripping into, the more audience, the more diverse audience that you'll reach out to, and really be able to expand your business and add more value to people in your community and helping you make more money as well. So I see that we do have a few questions here. One of the agents is asking about any feedback on images versus videos for ads.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question. So, and I didn't hit on that, and I apologize. So, basically videos can be great. They really can. The thing with videos, though, is it's like how specific can you make the video? So if you have something specific that you've maybe designed or something, that could be a real asset to you. But if it's something generic, maybe the carrier's given it to you, or it doesn't really talk much about what you're marketing, then it could be a distraction. So that's something you'll have to play around with. But I think a good video that's quick, I mean like 10 to 15 seconds, that maybe has something about the products you're selling in it real quick, that probably trumps a picture. But the reality is most of us might not have the time to do that or want to spend money doing it. Pictures work great as well. I'm not, certainly you can get results with pictures, but if you have someone who can help you make videos, I would try it. I mean, it's definitely worth putting in there.
Another agent is asking, could you just review, Ken, again, where you go on Facebook to get to the ad section?
Yeah, so when you go into Facebook, what you're looking for, hopefully you can see my screen, what you're really looking for is in the upper right-hand corner, you'll probably see your name. You'll see mine. It says Ken. There's a little circle with my little picture in it. What you're looking for is the plus sign. This is where you can create all sorts of stuff. You can create a business page. You can create a post. But more importantly, based on today, you can create an ad. So you click on that plus, and you'll see a drop-down and just select ad. And that'll take you into the ad creation area where you'll choose, what type of ad to set up.
Thank you. Jim's asking, is the location limited to larger metropolitan areas, or can it be specific to smaller towns or to specific towns?
Yeah, excellent question. So when you go in there, you got to kind of play around with it, but you can do a few things. So you can do, let's say, like a state. You want to do all of Nebraska. You can do that. Then you can just pick a city. It can be a city, a town, anywhere. I mean, Facebook is smart enough to know all the towns in the country. So if you live in a little town with 5,000 people, you can put that in. Or you can put in, the capital, Lincoln, Nebraska. And then when you do that, Facebook is going to say, okay, well, draw a circle around this area. How big is it going to be? In today's sample, I think I had 25 miles or something. So that's an option. You put in the town and you draw a circle around it. The other option that I didn't review, and this is, again, kind of goes back to that strategy where I was talking about picking out specific towns that might have specific either wealth or non-wealth. You can actually put zip codes in. So you could go in and say, look, I got these 12 zip codes. I only want this ad to go to people in these 12 zip codes. And they could be in different states. They can be all over the country. They can be in the same county. you have that option too. If you go look in that area, you'll see enter zip codes. So anyway, that should, I think, answer your question.
Absolutely. In the demo that you showed, Ken, you had an image in there about Medicare Ahead, or that image. Where did you get that image?
That image specifically, I got within Facebook. Like I said, if you go into the ad area, you'll see, again, I put this image in here, but you'll see that there's buttons on the image, and you can kind of crop it. You can, obviously upload videos. And if you click Browse Images, in here is a library of images that you can use. And there is a search area right here. And if you go in and search, you can find all sorts of images that you can choose from. And that's where I found it. I had done it before we set up the webinar just to save time.
Ken, would you recommend more personalized images or a generic image like that to get more response?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think the thing is my thought process has always been that people read the image, okay? So, like, I've always had somebody who says, well, I want to have a couple of baby boomers walking down the beach. So, as a consumer, if you saw that ad, would it stand out? Like, I don't know. So for me, I've always felt like in the image, we should have the name of what we're marketing in it, whether it's life insurance, Medicare, health insurance, like that word should be in it. And when you go in there and search, you'll see that certain images have that in there. I specifically like that Medicare just ahead image because to me, it kind of told the story of I'm 64 and guess what's coming up ahead for me? Medicare. So that's what this ad is. It's for people that Medicare is right in front of them. So, I mean, again, I can't stress enough that, I might sound smart, but at the end of the day, trial and error is going to be your go-to to figure that out. But I'm a percentages guy, and I think that the percentages for success are probably going to be higher if you're using images that have some sort of description about what you're trying to do. It just allows people to see the image and go, oh, Medicare, and then maybe they read your ad, or it gives you a shot. And that's why I was kind of talking about the videos. I've seen some people do ads with videos where the video is like 3 minutes long. Nobody's watching a 3-minute video when they're scrolling on Facebook. You have like 10 to 15 seconds tops. So the video needs to, get the point across as quickly as possible. And, those things, when you're sending this thing out to 10,000 people over a month, it's like, how do you get as many people out of that 10,000 to get interested in what you do? Well, it comes down to them understanding what you're trying to market. And that's the challenge. So anyway, hopefully that helps.
Definitely. Ken, with the Facebook ads, are they all Medicare compliant? How is Medicare compliance considered when producing an ad?
Yeah, good question. So the one thing you just don't want to go anywhere near is never in an ad do you talk about specific products. Like you wouldn't want to set up an ad and say, hey, we can help you with a Humana Plan G. That is danger. That's not compliant. So, when you get involved with Medicare, probably the first thing you want to do is stay away from any type of Medicare Advantage marketing. You probably want to keep it towards the T65 and, just try to keep it generic and basically say, hey, if you're confused, I always kind of say keep it simple and just try to focus on, are you confused? Are you confused about your options? And if you are, you can request a consultation, and that's always safe. Now, I'm sure some of you may have been approached this fall by some of the carriers. A lot of the carriers were giving out money to do ads. If a carrier comes to you and they help you do an ad, well, then you can talk about that specific carrier. That's a different thing. You're getting approval from them. But if you're just setting up your own ad, it's kind of like your website. You want to keep it more generic to how you can help rather than the products that you're focusing on.
And I'd like to add, too, that many of the carriers that we're working with now in the Medicare space we're seeing a new twist, that a lot of their ads available on their resource centers in their agent portals now have pre-approved and compliant Facebook ads that you can do that are carrier specific. So if you do want to market a specific carrier, we can help you out with that through our partnerships with the carriers that we represent. Now, lastly, the services that our agents can have for you, how does the setting up and producing an ad factor into the monthly cost that you charge for?
Yeah, good question. So, yeah, hopefully you guys will go and this isn't my specific Jetter site, but long story short, my main services are like I said, website design and social media content. And over the years, I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, "Hey, I need help setting up an ad." And initially, this is back 5 years ago, I used to say, "Well, call me up and I'll help you do it." And what started to happen is just like I said, my clients would do a lot of trial and error. And next thing you know, they would be calling me every day, all the time. "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And it got to the point where I was like, "Look, I was just trying to help you get going here. I can't be your chief marketing officer. I can't, not for the amount you pay. Like, my services are meant to be, pretty cheap." And I think if you guys go and look around at the site, you'll understand that. So what I've done over the years is I've kind of created a special consulting service. And you'll see I kind of have this social media kind of coaching consulting. So long story short, if you get to the point where you're like, "Look, I need to have someone help me set up this ad, but I don't know how to do it," what I can do is I can set up a 30-minute webinar with you where we'll do a screen share. I'll record it, and I will help you set up the ad. If you're a current client of mine, I charge you $75 for that 30-minute session. If I don't know you and I've never talked to you before, it's $125 if you're not a client. But that's the only thing I've been able to do to kind of keep it under control, because this is exploding in the insurance industry. And again, to reiterate, how do I help you with setting up ads? If you want, this is up to you. We can set up a 30-minute session where we do a webinar. I will record it, and I'm going to try to teach you how to fly out of the nest. And what that means is I'm going to help. You're going to set up the ad with my guidance. I'm going to teach you how to click on everything, and then I'm going to videotape it and record it. And when we're done, I'm going to give you that videotape and say, "Okay, next time when you want to go set up your second ad, you go back and rewatch this video. It's going to teach you everything you need to know." And I've had about a 99% flyout rate where everyone I've done the consulting for, they've all flown out of the nest and been able to do it themselves. I mean, to be honest, it feels overwhelming doing these ads, but it really is pretty easy, because at the end of the day, and I know this sounds terrible, but Facebook wants your money. They want to make it easy for you to do advertising. It definitely works if you know what you're doing and you have the right strategy, but it also can feel a lot like gambling. You can also lose money if you have no clue what you're doing and you don't have all the right pieces to the puzzle in place. So, I try to offer that option. I know it's not perfect. I wish I could just help everybody, but it just gets to the point where I gotta keep it under control. But hopefully that answers the question.
Definitely. For those who are on the phone and joined us today, I also be sure to check out the handout that we have there. It's a little bit bio about Ken and his business. And if anybody has any additional questions, you can feel free to type those into the box right now, and we'll be glad to address those. But I want to, one other question, Ken, is how about Twitter advertising? Is that something that you've ever ventured into?
I mean, it's out there. I have not personally ventured into it. I think that it's probably would be more beneficial for some specific niche products, maybe more of the health insurance, more people that are 35 to 50. I think the one thing about Facebook, and I don't want to typecast Art Jetter, but I'm sure quite a bit of your clients, quite a bit of the product portfolio is senior products. So that's the one beauty with Facebook is we just know that a very high percentage of people, probably 52 to 70, are kind of on there all the time. And that's the challenge with all these social medias is yeah, I mean they're big, they're good, but how many of your target market are on there really actively paying attention? And that becomes the foundation for what you're doing. So yeah, I got nothing against Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. All these things are great. It's just, it's playing the percentages. What's the percentage for success? And, you can always try, but just like Facebook, and these are, keep it simple, keep it cheap, see if you get any bites, and go from there kind of thing.
Excellent. Again, really appreciate this and excited to be able to continue to speak with our producers about the opportunity to enhance their business using social media, because it's really is a growing market, a growing segment of people that are using those platforms, and it really helps expand the scope of your business. So, again, thank you everybody for taking the time to join us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at seniorhealth@jetter.com, or you can give us a call at 800-228-0008. So with that, thank you again, Ken, and hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks again. Talk to everyone soon.